So you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that it's you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
All right, everybody, welcome to Matt with Maddie 3, Encounter at Mattpoint, which is an obscure reference to the pilot episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, which is why also we're now on a Star Trek bridge, albeit a Klingon one, because I only have the interior of a Klingon bridge handy, because I modeled one once. Took a long time. But anyway, Maddie, how are you?
I am doing great. Yeah, my channel officially got monetized like a couple days ago, so I'm still riding that high. Yeah, I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I got some Sam Adams Oktoberfest, which makes this one of the rare occasions where I'm actually drinking beer for one of these.
Nice.
And I did that because someone paid me for some maps that I made. Yep, it was you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of extra change rattling around in the coffers, so I turned it into beer.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's always a good call.
And then I marveled at the fact that, despite the fact that this grocery store couldn't give a crap about maps, I still managed to turn a map into groceries.
Excellent.
So,
that's awesome.
Thanks, money.
Yeah, thanks, capitalism.
Well, specifically money. You don't actually require capitalism to have money, so...
Okay, fair.
There. All right. And Vishanti says, well, she tries to say hot plot, but only the first Q should have the same, or should have the capitalization. Capitalization, very important for Klingon. For really bad reasons, but still. Don't get me started on why capitalization is stupid in Klingon. I have reasons, but I don't want to get into it. Anyway, now I'm just stalling to not listen to Matt, because I don't actually really want to listen to Matt Powell. So let's get into the drinking rules, and then we will go ahead and watch Matt. And remember, it's taken us 2 episodes to get about 21 minutes into this.
I'm proud of us.
There are 60 minutes left.
Great.
So this will probably last us through, like, Matt with Maddie 11.
Yeah. Something like that.
Okay. So, guys, we are going to drink. First, there's a bit of a randomness factor. Sometimes Mothra or Godzilla will decide to grace us with their presence. And in that case, we will drink. Now, normally that is a sound notification on my phone, but if you are a channel member and you do happen to super chat, do include one of the 3 kaiju emojis that I have, and in that case, you will actually cause us to drink if you do that. So, I mean, unless you don't want us to drink, then that's just the case. If you do super chat, don't include it. But if you do, we will. Also, we drink whenever Matt says something that is just so stupid we kind of have to, because otherwise our brains will turn to mush. So we turn it to mush with a more pleasant sensation. Let's see. We also drink whenever Matt gets something right that he's not just quoting from someone else. We're also going to drink whenever Matt tells a joke that doesn't land. Whenever he tells a story that we're pretty sure didn't happen. Now, technically this is a Kent one, but I'm going to include Matt because now Matt lives with Kent, so they're starting to blur together. I figure that eventually they're going to turn into, like, one amorphous blob with, like, 4 arms and 4 legs and 2 faces, and it's just going to be one blob of flesh spouting nonsense about, like, the age of the Earth. That's my prediction. But anyway, it's whenever they go to Godwin's Law for no reason, or just out of the blue, you take a drink for that one.
Matt does that a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of Godwin's Law.
Yeah, Matt's... Can we add one for Matt that is whenever he goes to school shootings? Because he goes to school shootings a lot.
I'm down with the school shootings drink.
It's like a subsection Godwin's Law.
Also, Smitty tries to say dot comrade. It doesn't work if you're not typing it in Cyrillic, man. Get a Cyrillic keyboard, or I don't care. Let's see. I think that covers it. Oh, also, if one of us makes a prediction about what the next point is going to be, which sometimes happen, we can call it as a drink trigger if the prediction comes true. But that's that's sort of on us, our own initiative. We don't have to. Anyway, here's some Matt Powell.
So they think a rock conceived. They think it's crazy to believe that...
I'm just already going to drink. They think a rock conceived. Just take a drink.
Sure, people think that. Sure.
Some people might. I don't know.
I don't know.
Unlike Goliaths, rocks don't conceive.
Mhm.
Which is what I'm presuming about Goliaths from D&D, because apparently when I tried to investigate, it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, again, they haven't. Vira hasn't had that talk with Pogo yet.
Okay. If you're wondering what we're referencing our D&D game, which we streamed just yesterday, and we're planning on streaming again Monday, so check that out.
Yeah, it's normally every other Monday, but our schedules have been insane.
Mm-hmm.
So
and
right now
Monday would be the normal Monday.
It would be a normal Monday. Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
An animal talk, yet they believe we're all talking animals.
Yes. The normal stance is that there is a species of animal that can talk, and there are many, 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 many more that cannot. Yeah. And then when someone criticizes you for saying that you believe that one of the species that's not known to be able to talk did talk, you don't get to come back and say, yeah, but humans talk, because everyone knows that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hit play again. I'm not even going to drink for that one, because...
What else do they believe that we can look at? Well, let's get into more Bible. So let's go ahead and go over to Romans 1:20.
Remember, this is a talk called The Religion of Atheism. So, of course, we're going to turn to the Bible to learn about atheism.
The Bible says in Romans 1:20, it says, "For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse." So they're without excuse, folks. Anybody that believes these things is without excuse.
Wait.
You mean these things that don't actually contradict Christianity, per se?
Christianity. Yeah, I just I zoned out when he was reading the verse, but apparently this... Okay, sure. It's one of those things...
The only part he's going to talk about is the end part where it says they are without excuse.
They are without excuse. Yeah. So I'm like, wait, who is they in that sentence? Can we... No, we're not going to actually think about what a scripture might mean. We're not going to put any depth into that whatsoever. Okay.
It says they, right. So it must mean they.
It says they, so it has to be the evil atheists.
Right.
And anybody that doesn't think exactly the way they do.
Right.
Yeah.
Which now includes you. Because apparently you're you might as well be an atheist, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I don't consider that to be a bad thing, but it seems inaccurate.
I mean, yeah, that's...
Okay.
Okay.
So, let's talk about the dinosaurs.
Yay!
Pastor Thompson brought some dinosaurs here tonight.
Yay!
And I love dinosaurs. I've always loved dinosaurs. I've enjoyed thoroughly the Land Before Time movies. I don't know if anybody saw those back.
You know what? I'm going to drink for Matt having a good taste in that kid movie, because that's a great movie. And also, if you can make it through the first Land Before Time without crying, I don't believe you.
You're a monster.
Mm-hmm. And look, I'm not saying you have to be bawling, but if there's no little tear you gotta wipe away.
If Land Before Time does not hit you in the feels, yeah, I don't trust you.
Exactly. Also, extremely inaccurate depiction of a whole bunch of dinosaurs that did not live together.
Right, yeah, because it's for children.
Look, it's Fantasyland dinosaurs. This is not science.
Yeah, right.
It's like when you have the Big Book of the Jungle and there's a jaguar and a lion hanging out.
Right.
It's a silly fantasy book about jungles.
Yeah.
Gary DeVere asks, where do you stream your D&D games? Those go to Cheshire Vic's channel. Mostly because it didn't really fit anyone else's channel, whereas her channel is already fairly eclectic anyway. So
yeah,
a D&D thing could slot right in.
I had to get somebody else to produce because I knew that I could not DM and produce. That was going to make my little brain explode. But yeah, Cheshire Vic, we've got how many episodes up?
I think we just did our 11th episode.
Our 11th episode? Yeah.
And they're each about 2 hours, so there's about 22 hours worth of D&D content if you want it. With me, Gutsick Gibbon, T.D. Lane, Benthoven, Cheshire Vic. I said Gutsick Gibbon, but also Luke, her fiancé.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I might be forgetting someone, but I don't think I want to.
Okay. Nah, I think you're good. I think we hit everybody.
Okay, there you go. So, all right, here we go.
Back in my day, which wasn't that long ago. And, they say that dinosaurs died off 65 million years ago.
I'm going to drink for him being correct because I don't know exactly when this was, and the change to 66 as the consensus was pretty recent, and that's close enough.
Yeah.
Plus, if we're not generous to Matt, we're not going to get any drink because he's correct. So
That's true.
this is the man who thinks that air in space is what lets the sun burn because it needs the oxygen because the sun is literally on fire.
Yeah.
That's Matt.
I'm
Now-
also a little upset that I know he's preaching from notes.
Would you
Right?
prefer-
Did you see his little spiral notebook that he turned pages from?
I did. I don't know. If I were to preach, I think I would need notes.
No. But I'm not upset that he's preaching from notes. I'm upset that his points are so jumbled.
Oh, despite him
And
actually
he
having
has
taken...
notes.
Yeah. He's taking the time to
Yeah.
try to organize, and it still came out like this? Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. That's concerning to me.
Yeah, no, I can see how that would be concerning.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I should end this poll. We don't need this poll anymore. Good job, everybody. Everybody voted the way they always do. Next time, there just isn't going to be a poll. I'm going to do the thing that no one likes.
In 1990, a scientist, a paleontologist, went looking for dinosaur bones, right? Because this
Yep, that is sort of a
paleontologist,
paleontologist
was really
thing.
determined to find some dinosaur bones, which I congratulate her for doing so. Her name was Dr. Mary Schweitzer, and
Okay, so hold up. Look, Mary Schweitzer goes out and finds dinosaur bones. It's just a little weird because I know where he's going. Obviously, he's going to go into soft
Right.
tissue.
Right.
But like the story of the Mary Schweitzer doesn't start with Mary Schweitzer finding a bone. It starts with a T-Rex femur in her lab, which she's
Yeah.
slicing tiny thin sections out of so that she can look at basically the osteological characteristics of the bone. And one of the things that can help with this is if you dissolve a little bit of the rock, because what that can sometimes do is some little minerals that have sort of collected inside various areas, inside cells and whatnot, can be ever so slightly dislodged. So you can get like a clearer picture of cell boundaries and things like that. Because when you're looking at a thin, I mean, we're talking like no less than a millimeter thick slice of bone here.
Yeah.
You need it to be really thin and have as little excess mineral as possible. Well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, her lab assistant left a sample in acid for like a week, and it was supposed to be
Ooh.
like an overnight weak acid bath.
Yeah.
So Mary's like, well, crap. Might as well look at it anyway, because you know, you never know, right? Many scientific discoveries have been made by first saying like, I guess we'll just do it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she looks at it and she's like, hey, what's this weird, orangey beige stuff? And then it's squishy, and then she's like, well, that can't be right. And then that's how that proceeds.
Right.
It does not go with the creationist imagination of Mary Schweitzer finds a T-Rex femur, cracks it open, and now she's got marrow that she can spread on her toast.
Right, and just like blood pours out.
Right.
That's 0% what happened.
Which, by the way, guys, buy a cow femur, roast it in the oven, spread the marrow on toast.
Yeah?
Yeah, trust me. I mean, add some like crushed garlic or something, or like some roasted garlic and some salt and pepper and whatnot. But yeah, good stuff.
in 1990, she discovered a dinosaur fossil with blood inside of it.
I actually don't
Still
know if she
contained,
discovered
with the
fossil.
hemoglobin still in the blood.
Okay, so almost every bit of that is wrong. So we're going to take a drink, and then we're going to go into what exactly was wrong and what actually happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I do want to preface this with Mary Schweitzer is a very loudly professing like Christian,
Yep.
And she's evangelical.
She's a former young Earth creationist too.
Oh, okay. I didn't know she was. I didn't know she had been a young Earth creationist. But
You know
yeah,
what convinced her to stop being a young Earth creationist?
Evidence.
Yeah, what it took to become a paleontologist required her learning so much she could no longer maintain a young Earth creationist worldview.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's actually a very inconvenient story in the long run for creationists, but whatever. Okay, so what was actually found? Well, what were found were some preserved remnants of collagen. Wasn't actually fully molecularly the same as collagen. There was some chemical changes that happened, but it retained some of the mechanical properties of collagen. So it was stretchy, and it was fairly strong. So that was found. Also found were some preserved osteocytes, but they weren't found preserved with the original organic molecules, right? The organic
What
molecules,
are osteocytes?
So those are bone cells, basically. There are certain...
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
so osteocytes is a collective term for the cells that create, destroy, and maintain bone.
Okay.
So there's osteoclasts, osteoblasts, there's all sorts of little osteocytes. And she's found, I don't remember exactly which ones she found, but she found a few of them. She also found structures that were morphologically consistent with avian blood cells that were localized in apparent channels that were, again, consistent with the appearance of blood vessels. However, as far as I know, to this day, Mary Schweitzer has maintained that she does not have the data to support the conclusion that that is blood cells in blood vessels. It's just consistent with it. Interestingly enough, also, when they did some protein sequencing on the collagen remnants and then compared it to collagen protein sequences from a variety of taxa, the closest mimic was, I believe, Struthio, which is a bird.
Excellent. So, okay, let me make sure, because like this is biology and paleontology, so not my field.
Stuff.
Yeah, so let me make sure that I understand. Okay, so before this discovery, it was assumed that no soft tissue would survive the fossilization process.
Not quite.
Okay.
It was more that the idea of what's called a molecular fossil, right? So, for instance, the collagen actually maintains some of the mechanical properties of collagen because some of the original chemical structure is still there intact. That was considered unlikely. Preserving FOSS tissue in the form of like actual ossified soft tissue was rare, but it was well known.
Okay, so I guess what I meant was like that, like soft tissue, so like collagen or blood cells, right? That those things, yeah, certainly you can, like, there's a process that sort of preserves, I mean, for lack of a better word, like a picture of it in stone, right? Because that's what a fossil is. A fossil, it's not a bone, it's a rock picture where a bone used to be.
Right. This is different.
Okay.
This is
different.
It's not quite the same chemical, but it's very, very close to it.
Right. So it has been changed through a process, but it is less changed than previously thought possible.
Yes.
Which is very, very cool.
Oh yeah. It allowed us to get a protein sequence, a partial protein sequence for a dinosaur protein from an extinct
amazing.
Mesozoic dinosaur. That's
amazing.
It's insane. And I did double check, and yes, it was Struthio, genus Struthio, which is the ostrich.
Okay.
And that was the closest protein sequence match they could find for Tyrannosaurus collagen.
Very cool.
When she stained for DNA, there were some positive. There was some positive reaction. However, Mary, as far as I know to this day, still says that she cannot rule out potential contamination from bacteria. So she has not reported that as dinosaur DNA. It's just possibly dinosaur DNA. And remember, just broken up little strands of nucleotides on a ribose backbone are going to, stain positive for DNA. We're not talking like chromatin here. We're talking tiny little fragments of DNA. Right.
So this isn't precursor to Jurassic Park.
No, not at all.
Right, not at all. So I think that's something that's kind of tricky, right? Is that like this is very, very, very cool, like for scientists, but it's not.
No sci-fi stuff is happening.
Yeah, no sci-fi stuff is happening, and so I think that's kind of something that can be tricky for like the general public or a layperson or just not an expert in the field to kind of understand what's exciting to scientists and why,
Yeah.
Because
this is not actually that exciting to like the 4-year-old kid who wants to go to Jurassic Park.
Exactly. This is 0% exciting to them. It does not help even a little bit. But like to the scientists studying it, this is paleontology and anything dealing with fossils is such a data sparse world, right? So like we found a new type of data, right? We were able to get info on these like protein sequences. Like that's amazing, right? That's a whole part of this puzzle that we thought we would never get to fill in.
Paleontology is one of those fields where the number of specimens usually far dwarfs the number of researchers.
Yeah.
Which is not very common, by the way.
Right. Okay, so should we listen to what how Matt's gonna explain what we just talked about?
Yes, we should.
All right, let's see.
Now, kids, do you think that dinosaur blood
Kids?
could last
These are
for
grown-ass
65
adults.
million years? I mean,
No, Matt, I don't think dinosaur blood can last for 65 million years. Schweitzer didn't claim it did, and even if what she saw was in fact the remnants of dinosaur blood, it wasn't still blood.
Right. It has been changed. This isn't blood that just you set outside and waited 65 million years and it's still just there, just blood.
Yeah. It's not even dry blood in the sense that, like, like if a drop of your blood fell on the floor and you forgot to clean it up and then you come back a week later and now, well, you should clean your floors more often than that. But let's say you don't. You come back a week later and now there's a dried little drop of blood. It's not even that. It's... Yeah. So... And that's assuming that what she saw was actually remnants of blood in the first place, which, again, not for certain. I personally think it's likely that it's blood, but that's just me being a wishful thinker.
Yeah.
You look outside, an animal that dies, it gets eaten by the birds and the other animals. Blood doesn't last very long, does it?
Yeah, Matt, people tend not to live in areas that are great for fossil preservation. I'm going to take a drink, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about taphonomy.
Okay.
Okay, so taphonomy is a study of how fossils are preserved and what that preservation mechanism does to the organism so that you can do things like tell whether what you're seeing is the result of the actual anatomy of the fossil or what's called a taphonomic artifact, which is something that only appears to be an aspect of the anatomy, but it's actually just a result of how it was preserved. One famous example of a taphonomic artifact is, for a while it was thought that Archaeopteryx's digit 1 on the pes, the big toe, was inverted like a songbird so it could clutch onto branches. Turns out, nope, that's a taphonomic artifact. When it was dying and the various muscles and tendons and whatnot in the foot were decaying, that toe, which was a bit of a dew claw and the angle it was at, it just kind of fell over and it looked like it was on the opposite side of the foot. Subsequent finds have found that that's not the case. We can rule that out. It didn't actually have a perching foot like that. Okay. There's also something called taphonomic bias, which says certain sites are better or worse at preserving certain organisms. So, for instance, the Morrison Formation, which is where you find Ceratosaurus, by the way, has a well-known bias towards large organisms. If you were to assume that the Morrison Formation had a representative chunk of the animals, it would basically be a world with a whole bunch of sauropods, and that, which is the big long neck dinosaurs, and then a ridiculous number of carnivores, who I guess only can feed off of each other or the sauropods, and nothing else for animal life.
Nothing else. Gotcha.
We know that's not a viable ecosystem. That can't actually be what was happening. And so that is because of the environment. It was a dry, arid place where small animals are going to get scavenged extremely quickly, but large animals can be covered by things like ash or sand or things like that, and then later on preserved. So would maybe... Oh, sorry.
Would maybe a good analogy be like, let's say archaeologists of the future, what they want to learn about what cars we drove, and what they happen to discover is the preserved parking lot of the Ford dealership. So there's they could make the erroneous assumption that everyone drove Fords because that's all they have.
And now Matt is talking specifically about observing fossil formation now. And the thing is that humans tend to live in places where it's either a forest, originally, right? That's the natural climate, right? Or sometimes it's seaside. And the thing is that while seasides are actually a good place for fossils to end up forming from animals that die around there, they usually only form if they wash out to sea and then sink to an anoxic area, which does happen.
Yeah.
There are anoxic portions of the sea, and if a fossil or an animal sinks down there, high chance they're going to be fossilized. Also, places like swamps. So, for instance, the peat bogs in places like Scotland are now forming fossils. Many animals that fall into those peat bogs are going to be fossils. Right now, many of them are what's called a subfossil, where it's a relatively modern organism, and there have been some processes of preservation started, but it's still, at least partially, the original organic stuff is still mostly there. It's a subfossil. So we have subfossils, we have fossils. Also places that are probably forming fossils are sandy deserts that exist right now. But again, Matt doesn't live there. Most people don't live there. But yes, there are places where people live where you can go and find a forming fossil right now.
Right, but like specifically, outside in the like open air where they're like not covered, where there are lots of predators and scavengers, is a terrible environment. That's not where fossils are going to form.
But it's also where you're most likely to come across a dead animal.
Yeah.
Because not many people are digging under anoxic lagoons or under sand dunes or spelunking through dry caves.
Right.
So
Right.
So yes, Matt, you are correct. Most people will never see an animal die that then gets fossilized. Good thing we know about
correct. I'm drinking because I need beer in my body.
So these dinosaurs had to have been big, right? Because number one, they didn't get eaten by the other creatures. And number two, we know that one was probably buried in the flood.
Okay, well, hold on.
How do we know that, Matt?
Yeah, we don't know that, so we're taking a drink for the flood comment.
Yeah. Also, don't mind me. I'm like, I need to do something with my hands, so I'm going to be winding yarn.
Hey, works for me.
Hey, okay.
As far as the big thing goes, Matt actually does kind of reveal something unintentionally that, actually a number of fossil sites have a taphonomic bias for larger bones. Why? Because they're harder to carry away.
Yeah,
right?
fair.
You can carry away a whole, Morganucodon in your jaws, which is a little proto-mammal thing, right? But a sauropod dies, and that femur is just going to lie there forever, because who's going to haul away a freaking sauropod femur?
Certainly not a scavenger.
Right. Which also explains why, by the way, the rarest bones to find for sauropods are the skulls, because they're very lightly constructed, and in fact, they can be easily scattered.
Ooh.
Which is why most sauropod taxa are not known to don't have known skulls. We have to infer the skull anatomy from related taxa.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's almost like we've already thought about this, and we already know what's going on.
It's almost like a lay person in the field, right? It's almost like a non-expert with no formal training and no even informal training, right? From people in the field. Almost like he doesn't know how things work.
Right. I'm not even an expert in the field. I just do my reading. That's it.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Let's talk about
you don't have to have a formal education.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have to have a level of expertise, right, of general knowledge, you know?
I do sometimes get mistaken for being a paleontologist online.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
let's go.
2B and 323 does point out that technically correct is the best kind of correct, which is technically correct.
Which is technically correct.
So here we go.
A minute. They say the flood is the biggest myth out there that creationism teaches. It's the number one death blow to creationism. Is
it?
I mean, I think that non-human and ape and common ancestry is crazier than the flood, right?
Yeah, I think radiometric dating is you're gonna have to explain that one, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that the bare idea of the flood is not the craziest thing that YEC's had, although it's up there.
Right. The idea of there being so I guess it kind of depends on how literal you take it, right? The idea of there being a time when there was massive flooding all over the earth, right? That doesn't sound super crazy to me, but the idea that it rained literally everywhere for 40 days and 40 nights, and in that time period, every inch of earth was covered in water. I was like, okay, and yet all the animals survived. That's insane. The specifics are nuts.
Right.
Thinking of wide-scale flooding, yeah, sure, a glacial dam breaks, and oh my gosh, we have wide-scale flooding.
By the way, Maddie, you saying it's raining everywhere all at once? You now know that means that your next weather analysis for a fictional location has to be Ferenginar, where it always rains all the time.
Okay, you're right. I should do another fantasy climate video. I need to do a video that's not going to get flagged by YouTube. My last live stream did, and so I need to be well behaved for a few weeks.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you stream about COVID. Conspiracy, I guess.
Conspiracies. It was. I mean, YouTube. I put in an appeal, and they got back to me within 2 days. And everything's hunky dory. It's back up on my channel. Nothing. my warning was given back to me.
Oh, good.
So that's all fine. I just I'm just gonna play nice with the rules for a couple live streams, I think.
Good idea. All right, here we go.
We can all prove that there was never a global flood. I've heard them say that. And they'll say, well, if you can find a dinosaur and man in the same layer...
No. You could easily prove a global flood if there were one.
Right, they would be so
trivial.
simple.
So I'm going to take a drink for Matt thinking that we just think that by fiat you can't prove a global flood.
No, you could easily prove a global flood, and there just is no evidence for it.
And the other thing is, the human in the Cambrian isn't about a flood. It's about the short time scale of the Earth being around, right? So if you think the Earth is only 6,000 years old, and the humans were there for the whole time, then regardless of whether or not there's a flood, it should be reasonable to find humans in what science would consider out-of-place locations. Or not necessarily humans, but just organisms in general. Especially organisms that share the same kind of environment. Because you got to remember, like, a lot of our Cambrian fossil beds aren't deep sea like creationists like to pretend. They're shallow marine environments. The same kind of place where, like, modern sea snails live, or modern shallow water saltwater fish, coral reefs with modern corals, all of which are things that you don't find in the Cambrian. Instead, you find things like rugose corals, which are not even corals in the traditional sense, and you find things like trilobites and ammonites and various weird stem arthropods like Anomalocaris and things like that. Why don't we find modern shallow water sea life in these environments? And then why is it that you can have a desert on top of that, followed by another shallow marine water environment, followed by another desert on top of that? And I'm speaking specifically about what's underneath my feet right now.
Yeah, so that's so I think I think something just to point out that with creationism, I don't think they fully understand that a global flood and the Earth being 6,000 years old are actually two separate claims.
Yeah, you can be an old Earth creationist and think there was a global flood.
Right. But so I guess those are two independent claims. So you can't so the existence of a worldwide flood would not prove that the Earth is only 6,000 years old.
Right.
Right. So I don't know why he's going for Matt seems to make these as one claim.
Well,
right.
Because Matt is using the false dichotomy, right? He's like, it's either young Earth creationism or it's godless, heathen, atheistic evolution and everything that comes with it, including, I guess, not being shitty to gay people.
Yeah.
If the Earth is old, you can't be shitty to gay people. Good thing the Earth is old.
Good thing the Earth is old. Don't be shitty.
I think I might like that part of the dichotomy.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I do like that. Let's,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can't be shitty to people for being gay. There are gay people who are really shitty out there, and I'm okay with you being shitty to those particular ones.
Well, yeah.
Right.
But that's not being shitty to a person because they're gay.
It's the reason that you're being shitty.
Or otherwise a member of the LGBTQ community.
Right. Here we go.
Men will believe that dinosaurs and man lived together. Well, we have. We actually have.
Here we go.
Phosphate beds were discovered back in the late 1800s, mid 1800s, and in the late 1860s, scientists discovered dinosaur bones in the same 18-inch layer with human bones.
Okay, well, I'm going to take a drink, I'm going to open a new beer, and then we're going to get into this.
Okay, I haven't heard this claim before, so I need you to explain it to me.
Okay. So, here's my new beer opening. There we go.
ASMR.
I know, right? Free ASMR for you guys. Beer opening. And this is, of course, another Oktoberfest, because it's literally the only beer in the house. Not also because it's good. I mean, that's why it's the only beer in the house. So, the ashy phosphate beds are actually a bed associated with some coal deposits, which are mined in the Appalachians. But the problem is that there's a serious problem with reworking, right? So, when sediments are deposited, according to the law of superposition, right, you get the first deposited ones at the bottom, and so on. Well, reworking is what happens when those sediments then get broken up and transported again. Yeah. So you can have but let's say there's a fossil inside the older sediments that are broken up. Well, you can then get a Mesozoic fossil inside a bit of rock that was reworked and then redeposited during the Cenozoic, which means you can also find some Cenozoic stuff worked into that. And that's what's happened. The Ashley phosphate beds are well known to be reworked because, spoiler alert about the Appalachians, they've been eroding for like 350 million years.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of complicated reworking and like deformation, uplift, erosion. It's a very complicated area geologically because it's the oldest mountains in the world. Oh, am I echoing a bit?
No, you're good. So I did take my like one geology 101 class as part of my like Earth atmospheric and planetary sciences degree. And one of my favorite things we did was like thinking through how different geologic layers could be like undergo morphology. So you can see like, okay, so if the layers were put down, oh goodness, hold on, I can make a visual. I've got so many colors of yarn around me right now. So if yellow was put down first and then like this purple, right? But then you could have some type of uplift thing that makes it go like this.
You've got purple light on, so it just looks beige, by the way.
It just looks beige? Oh, okay. Well, it's a very...
Is
anyway.
It like a mauve?
Yeah, it's not yellow. You can tell the difference.
Got it.
Right. So, now we have these they're like uplifted and they're standing upright, so if you're just looking at this, you can't tell which one's older and which one's younger. So you have to, have found the rock layers as they're originally laid down.
Well, there are other options actually. So for instance, if let's say you have some uplifted strata, so now they're more or less vertical, and the uplift lines so that you could trace them have now been eroded away, which actually happens in a lot of places that you can go see. Famously, there's a lot of such strata in the Grand Canyon, where I was just a couple of weeks ago, which was fun. It's my second time there, I think.
I've only been once, and I was like 7 years old, but I want to go back.
You got to come back.
Yeah.
Look, Ben and I we can show you around because it's just
so cool.
in our backyard. Anyway. So one of the things, there are some things that when they are deposited, there's a gradient from bottom to top. One of them is graded bedding. So a lot of relatively violent and rapid deposition will deposit lots of little bits of different sizes. And if it's a rapid, turbulent thing, they'll be sorted by density and size. So heavier, denser things will sink faster. So if you can find a graded bedding in vertical strata, you can check the direction of the grading to see which way the strata were deposited.
Very cool.
So there are ways around it. Other options though are going to be things like you can radiometrically date anything that's igneous in there. You can also check index fossils because it's much more likely that the index fossils are in the order that they're found worldwide than that you found the exception and it just happens to be in vertical strata. Oops, yeah. So, all right, let's get more Matt, because I'm definitely trying to avoid him, and when I recognize that, it's time for more Matt.
Yeah.
Now, the evolutionists just said, if you find dinosaur bones with human bones in the same layer of strata, that proves that they lived at the same time, and we'll believe the flood.
Yeah, but you didn't, though, Matt. You found dinosaur bones reworked from older strata into something that was then deposited, right? I mean... Yeah. I'll make a little quick analogy, right? Let's say you're a slob and you just put your dirty laundry in a pile on a chair. Okay. Then one day, you bump into the chair, and some of it spills over, and you're just like, whatever, I don't care. And then you put a little bit more laundry here and there, and then it happens again, and some more of it spills over. Well, now you've got some of the older laundry with some of the newer laundry mixed in, and a new pile at the bottom on your floor. Does that actually tell you anything about the order in which you wore those clothes? No. Also, do laundry.
Yeah, also do laundry.
I did laundry today.
Ooh,
yeah.
Proud of you.
It was getting to be like, I'm out of socks time. Not quite out of socks. I had two clean pair left, so it wasn't emergency laundry yet.
Yeah.
But also, I've been going through socks lately, because like a whole batch of socks is now getting to that point where there's like, all right, it's time for these socks to go. So my number of available socks is just shrinking, and I don't like it.
Rough.
Anyway.
You bring that fact forth to them. Do they believe it? No, because a foolish man stiffeneth his neck.
Or for all the reasons I said, I'm just going to take a drink.
The Bible says that the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. So it doesn't matter how many times you correct them. They're not going to listen.
In the Bible.
Okay.
What about fossilized seashells up on the top of Mount Everest?
Oh, goody.
How'd they get there?
Uplift.
Plate tectonics.
Right. So for those of you who might not know, because why would you unless you read about geology stuff or young earth creationism busting stuff, the Himalayas are forming. They're not done forming. They're currently still getting taller and taller because the Indian plate is slamming north into the Eurasian plate, which is just kind of like rotating a little bit. It's not moving very fast anywhere. It's moving a little bit to like the east, but not like a crazy speed. Whereas the Indian plate is kind of zooming, and it kind of has been for like 100 million years. So that means that originally there was ocean crust between what's now the Indian subcontinent and the Eurasian plate. And when they slam together, that oceanic crust, which is at about the same density, it doesn't slip under one under the other. It just kind of crumples up as if you pushed two pieces of paper on a desk flat, push them together, and they just kind of spring up. That's still happening right now in the Himalayas. So, of course, what do you find in the Himalayas? Oh, marine sediment. Because it's marine crust that's been pushed up. What else would it ever be?
Yeah.
So let's see what else Matt has to say about it, because I'm sure it's just going to be, well, you see, there was a giant flood, so marine ecosystems grew in situ there.
Do you like that he has not talked about Mary Schweitzer's discovery again?
Oh, yeah, it was just a quick little point, like, oh, blood can't last that long. It's like, well, great. Okay.
And then now we're moving on. It's like,
right on to something else.
The whiplash of this video.
Well, at least it hasn't gone to Godwin's Law yet, so...
We haven't gone there yet. Not in this 10 minutes.
Well, we've only watched another 3.5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Evolutionists say, well, they were pushed up through millions of years of plate tectonics.
Yeah.
Plate tectonic shifts put them up there. Well, let's go back to Fantasyland and pretend that's true.
Okay, let's do it.
Plate tectonic shifts do happen, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But the fossilized seashells that we found up there are closed. Now, when these sea creatures died, naturally they would open up.
Okay, we're going to take a drink. So we can't even get the normal creationist talking point right here, which is that clams open up, which is kind of true. Okay?
Right, except that the fossils that they find aren't clams.
Well, there are some clams up there, although they're not always closed. But so there's a few things, right? So clams require muscular action to keep their shells closed. When a clam dies and the muscles relax, the shell opens slightly, although it doesn't just splay open, right?
Well, that's like if you get clams from you're gonna make, pasta with clams, right? That's like before you cook them, you throw away the ones that are open because
they're dead.
They're dead, and you don't want those.
Yeah, because they're already started to rot.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why oyster shucking is a time-consuming and labor-intensive process. If you've ever done it, it's a pain. That's why I don't like to cook my own raw oyster. Well, prepare my own raw oysters. Although I will say, oysters Rockefeller, where you just get a little bit of hot sauce and some lemon juice in the shell, put them in the oven just a little bit, maybe sprinkle some hard cheese. Also really good.
I want oysters now. Too bad we live in landlocked states.
Yeah, although, you know what? Now that in the 21st century, transportation of fresh seafood is actually possible. You can find live lobsters in live oysters in landlocked states now.
Okay.
Yeah, although I did used to live in Washington where you could get like live gooey duck that had been harvested earlier that day. And now you're just taking home like 2 pounds of crab meat, which sells for over $1,000 a pound in Japan, but you just bought it for like $40.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's a few problems here. One, if a clam is buried shortly after it dies, the weight of the sediment will close the shell, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's some kind of like Herculean effort to reclose a dead bivalve shell. If you've ever found a recently dead bivalve, you can just do it with your fingers.
Boop, boop.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Because, of course, clams aren't like, superhero strong keeping their shells closed. That's why you can shuck them, right? There's not... This isn't, like I said, a Herculean effort. Second, a lot of the things found aren't clams, as Maddie said. They're brachiopods. And brachiopods are an entirely different phylum from mollusks.
Yep.
They're really not any more closely related to mollusks than like they are to, I guess, any other deuterostome, so bugs, right? So a brachiopod does have two shells, but they're symmetrical in a different way. So a bivalve shell is left and right. So each shell is a mirror image of the other shell. Brachiopod shells are top and bottom. So one side of a single shell is a mirror image of the other side of the shell, but the other shell is not actually symmetrical with that shell that it opposes.
Okay.
So one shell actually fits slightly inside the other one because one is top and one is bottom. That's the easy way to tell if the shell you're looking at, or the paired shells that you're looking at, are brachiopods or mollusks. Another thing is, if you ever find a shell from a paired shell organism and that shell itself isn't symmetrical along any single axis, it has to be a bivalve shell. Because while many bivalve shells are symmetrical along an axis, some of them aren't, oysters being a case in point.
Oh, yeah.
So those are ways you can tell whether or not you have a brachiopod or a bivalve mollusk. Many of these are not bivalve mollusks, but brachiopods. And brachiopods have to use muscular action to keep the shells open. So when they die, their shells naturally close. Yeah. So any dead brachiopod is likely to be found with a closed shell. Now, they'll also close their shells to protect themselves. So if they were a common food dish, you wouldn't be able to use that easy thing as a shell open or closed in order to pick dead ones out, which is also, I don't think anyone eats brachiopods, really.
Right.
Anyway, here we go.
They would only die closed if they were in a flood.
No!
I'm just gonna take
Why?
I'm just gonna take a drink. There's just no
But
good
why,
reason.
Matthew?
I want to hear if he gives a reason why. I want to hear what it is.
You know what that proves? If they're on the top of Mount Everest
he doesn't give a
and they're
reason why.
closed.
He doesn't even try to give you a reason why. Oh my goodness.
Goodness.
Oh, Matt. Why? You could try to make it even just seem reasonable, but no, he's just going to skip right past that. Man, we've been talking too much about food, I realize. We talked about marrow.
Yeah, I was about to
oysters
say,
and...
this is now just, Matt with Maddie is just a cooking show now.
I wouldn't actually be opposed to starting a cooking show. I'm not a bad cook.
Right. I'm not a bad baker.
Well, there you go. I do occasionally make bread, and this morning I made a nice Korean rice bowl breakfast with an egg mixed into the rice, and then this is a popular thing in Korea and Japan. A little slice of crisped up ham on top, or spam. Sorry, on top. Crisped up spam on top.
Nice.
Yeah, spam is nice because you can just cut it.
Yeah. I am very excited because I am going to make soul cakes for Halloween. Obviously not for trick-or-treaters because it's not okay to hand out handmade food to children you don't know. But for my friends, we're gonna have some soul cake. So I had to get a few odd ingredients. I needed to get saffron threads. That's not super odd, but you have to try to find that. And then currants, which also is not in my local grocery store. But I've ordered those, so
nice. I'm just thinking about doing a Mike Flanagan marathon. Because Mike Flanagan, as far as I can tell, has had one miss in my book, and I just won't watch that one.
Okay, there you go.
And by the way, the Mike Flanagan miss is Before I Wake. It's just It's nothing special. All his other stuff is great, though. Here we go.
Okay.
It proves that they were buried by a flood. And by the way, Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world.
Usually. I'll take a drink, because that's usually the case.
It's usually the case, yeah.
Every once in a while, K2 takes it for a few months. Because, again, they're still growing. Which is something I've never actually heard creationists really discuss.
Yeah.
So to say, well, there was no global flood and these things were pushed up through billions of years of plate tectonics, well then or millions of years, excuse me. They always pull out the big numbers. Sound like a magician,
Is he just excusing his verbal flub by trying to dunk on science again?
I think so. But I love young Earth creationists who think big numbers are impressive. No, that's just, there's nothing more impressive about a billion years than there's nothing more impressive about the number 1 billion than there is the number like 2000, right? It's just like different things take different lengths of time, you know?
That reminds me, at one point, Kent Hovind gave a reasonably accurate statement about how many stars there are if you divide them by the rough number of people on Earth when he said the statement, and his audience laughed.
Oh, excellent.
It's like, oh, big number, ha 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 ha.
Oh, big number, haha. Right? Because that's like young Earth creationists like to have random big numbers memorized, right?
Yeah. What makes them sound smart? Because they can rattle off big numbers.
Rattle off big numbers. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, cool party trick, bro. I don't... Anyway.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
And then when I pull out the numbers, they're like, hey, you can't do that.
No, is it you can't do that, or is it you're doing it wrong?
Is you're doing it wrong, buddy. Like, please do the math, right?
Oh, okay.
Can't do that. But the numbers, you know what?
Keep
pulling out the numbers because it just makes God that much greater. I mean, his creation is powerful. Greater in the sense that we see him. You know, when I look at proteins and get a chance to look under a microscope.
Matt, you were talking about why the millions of years don't work for... Now we're talking about proteins under a microscope, which, by the way, I'm taking a drink for things that never happened. I refuse to believe that Matt has ever looked through a microscope powerful enough to show him a protein.
Right, yeah.
Like, I don't think he's ever looked under anything but an optical microscope. I haven't. I've seen a scanning electron microscope.
Yeah.
But I've never
seen
used
one.
it.
I've never used one. Yeah.
Actually, the scanning electron microscope I saw was in a little shop in Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there was like a little artist group, and like they like took memberships, and like one of their members was like worked at a hospital or something, or not, a research lab, and they were like upgrading, and they were just gonna get rid of their scanning electron microscope. So he was like, "Can I have it?" So
what?
Now this little, it's not even like in Boston. It's in a little town outside of Boston. And in their downtown area, there's a little storefront that has a scanning electron microscope.
That's amazing.
Yep. It was very strange. Okay, here we go.
Massachusetts is weird.
It is. Look, there's things I like about Massachusetts. The weather is just the thing that breaks it for me.
Well, like, Massachusetts is the state where there would be a random shop with a scanning electron microscope.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like that's where that would happen.
I could see it happening in a few places in upstate New York and maybe New Jersey as well.
Yeah.
And stuff and see all this. It's amazing. The Bible says the heavens declare the glory of God.
No, I'll drink. It is amazing.
Sure.
Now, whole whales have been found throughout the United States on the top of mountains.
Not in the United States, but in South America. So, like...
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to drink for it being completely stupid, because, like, no, there are mountains where you can find whales. They're just not in the U.S., but, like, you can find whales in the U.S. because there have been sea transgressions.
That he read a thing that said in the Americas and assumed that meant the continental United States.
Oh, yeah. I'll bet that does seem likely. Because, I mean, America is just the United States, right?
Right.
I mean, Canada, that's, like, part of Europe, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You know, actually, there's an island that is disputed between Canada and the U.S.
Oh, between Canada and the U.S.?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So basically, because both countries claim it, every once in a while, they'll do some naval exercises within the waters that would be territorial for that island. And what typically happens is that a bottle of some U.S.-made whiskey is left by the Americans after collecting the bottle of Canadian whiskey that was left by the Canadians.
Wait, I thought that's the story between Canada and like Iceland.
Oh, it might be Canada and Iceland, but I thought it was the U.S. But Iceland doesn't make good whiskey, though. So why would they exchange?
I don't know. Maybe it's...
All right, it's a disputed island that's out there, and we're going to find out, but we're not going to find out tonight.
Correct.
And I might be wrong, because I sometimes am, despite what some people think. I do know some people who think that I'm just never wrong, and I'm like, no, I'm wrong all the time. No. Like, one time I thought I was wrong, but I wasn't, so I was wrong about being wrong.
There you go. Yeah.
See? All right, here we go.
Now, how do you think they got there?
I wonder how.
Oh, it could be the global flood.
Oh, whales.
They'll
right.
say, oh, well, They always go running to plate tectonics to solve all their problems.
I mean, do you have a counter? Oh, it's Canada
Yeah,
and Denmark. There you go. Denmark probably makes some good whiskey.
Okay.
There you go.
Plate tectonics push them up there.
Thanks, Venerable B.
Look, folks, when a whale dies, what happens is it floats to the surface because whales are made of fat.
No! Whales very specifically sink to the bottom of the ocean.
Okay, they do float for a bit.
Oh, okay.
So he's not entirely wrong.
But
That's
like
one of the reasons why
whale
fall is a thing, yeah. It's
whale fall is a thing.
really important thing for many deep sea ecosystems. So,
Yeah.
I believe Jackson Wheat actually has a pretty cool video about whale falls. So if you haven't seen that video, I highly suggest that you go check it out. Because, one, if you're not watching Jackson Wheat, what is wrong with you? You should be watching Jackson Wheat. Plus, he does a show on my channel called Jackson with Jackson, where we'll take a look at Charles Jackson. Because I've managed to cultivate a group of friends that have easily, like, word-playable names with creationists. You're welcome. But anyway, yeah, whale falls are like a significant food source for huge, diverse ecosystems living at the bottom of the ocean. They do not just float. And also, I want Matt to explain to me what he thinks happens to whale bones after the fat is eaten by things like sharks and other whales and surface level fish. Also, globsters. You ever hear of globsters?
What's a globster?
A globster is a weird, hard to identify bunch of rotting flesh that washes up on beaches occasionally. It's mostly whale fat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
They're nothing but fat.
No. I don't care if he's kidding. I'm taking a drink. Whales have bones, damn it.
Whales have bones.
I've seen a whale skeleton, a real one. It existed. It was made of bone. They also have muscles. They've got organs. They've got ligaments. They've got all the things that a normal animal has.
Full-blown mammal.
Right.
Yeah.
They've even got hair.
Ooh.
Tiny little stubby hairs, but they exist. And they're most common in newborns.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Come up to the surface, and then the birds just eat them away. The fish eat them because they mainly just have cartilage for bones, and there's nothing left.
What? Is he confusing sharks with whales?
Possibly.
I'm taking a drink for...
He doesn't know what a whale fall is. I'm also sadly out of beer now.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break after I take this sip of beer, but also...
Okay.
How much do you want to bet that he thinks, oh, whale sharks exist. Sharks have cartilaginous skeletons. Whale sharks are whales. Whales have cartilaginous skeletons.
Clearly. I actually am not going to take that bet because I don't think he's put that much effort into it.
Okay. But I do like that that's the most plausible thing I can come up with for how he came up with that idea. I didn't actually think he was going to go so far as to say that whale skeletons are primarily cartilage.
Cartilage, yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, guys.
Oh, honey.
We're going to go to an intermission. It's going to be about 3 minutes. Please stick with us. Also, hit like if you haven't already. And in the off chance that you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that. And we will be right back.
We'll be right back.
Time for action.
Keep targeting ranger teams. When I want your opinion, I'll give it to you.
Back to action.
1, fight!
We're not backing down. How can I help you? Tag team. Yeah. This is gonna hurt. Zero in on my coordinates.
Megazord, ready. I am Lord Zed, Emperor of all he sees.
All right, everybody, we are back. We've got new beer here. Wait, let me open this beer. Oh, there we go. That was nice.
Okay. And I have from Stone Cloud Brewing,
Not a sponsor.
not a sponsor, a Chug Norris Mosaic Pale Ale. I have not tried this beer. We need to get a beer group to sponsor us.
Hey,
anyway.
Well, I'm drinking a Sam Adams. Sam Adams, if you want to sponsor us, I will continue to drink your beer, provided you give it to me. If you
I don't know if you could hear that.
If you ship me a weekly 6-pack, I will promote the crap out of your beer.
Yeah. Okay.
I will also
It
probably
smells
get
very
fatter.
hoppy.
Okay. Let's get a quick taste test. Let's not stand on ceremony waiting for Matt. Let's see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, that's very hoppy.
All right.
It's not an IPA. It's a Mosaic Pale Ale with just like some kind of citrus floral note on the back end. I don't mind it. Yeah, I don't normally like very hoppy beers, but
you know what? Hoppy beers always make me want to eat Southeast Asian noodle dishes.
Ooh.
And here's why.
Oh.
I know why. I know why for a fact. It's because the hoppiness balances out the somewhat heavy flavors from fish sauce.
Oh,
which is a big flavor ingredient in Southeast Asian cooking.
Yeah, now I have kimchi in my fridge and I have soba noodles in my cabinet, and now I want to make
mix them
noodles.
Mix them with some fish sauce and drink some more Chug Norris.
Okay, I've got fish sauce.
Me too.
That sounds amazing.
All right, here we go.
Whales don't get fossilized anymore.
What are you? I'm just gonna take a drink because you know what? We need a citation on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep going now because. Okay.
So, if these whales died naturally and then over millions of years were pushed up the mountain, wouldn't they have been eaten by some creatures?
They probably were. Matt Powell seems to think that it's either scavenged or fossilized, and there is no in between. But spoiler alert for Matt, scavenge marks are a common find on fossils, and we use them to learn about the behavior of local carnivores. For instance, going back to dinosaurs, because that's sort of my wheelhouse, we have Triceratops and Edmontosaurus bones, which have been scavenged by T-Rex. How do we know? Oh, because the little nip marks and drag marks on the bones actually match up to the premaxillary teeth of Tyrannosaurus, which have a unique morphology compared to the maxillary teeth that make them kind of like incisors, so the kind of thing you would nip at meat and pull. Yeah. Now we know the actual biological motion that T-Rex went to pull meat off of bones because of scavenge marks on fossils. So, isn't that
Turns out we can know things.
I know. We can know more things than just that it died.
Right.
Goodness. I have to take another drink for Matt saying they just get scavenged. As if that precludes fossilization of something, especially something as big as a whale.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Or wouldn't the bones have been deteriorated from the sun hitting it?
Whales die underwater, Matthew. Whales die underwater. I'm taking another. I cannot believe this.
Okay.
Look, not all of them, sir.
Yeah,
sometimes they beach.
Yeah.
But the typical place. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Just go ahead.
Can I tell you what I think Matt thinks we think?
Yes, I would
What
love
I think,
to.
yeah. Okay. I think Matthew Powell there thinks
I'm using his
that,
full name like I'm his angry mom.
yeah, I don't know his middle name.
If we knew your middle name, we would use it right now.
Yeah.
I'm just
So
going
I
with
think
Matthew
he-
Andrew Powell. He seems like a Matthew Andrew.
Matthew Andrew Powell. I think what he thinks happens is, okay, a whale dies and it's somehow immediately on top of rock. Okay. And then it just stays there, right? Like on a platform, right? And specifically that platform gets lifted up over time.
So suddenly it becomes like a Zoroastrian funeral?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
just
goodness.
a 300 million year Zoroastrian funeral, right? Because he's not thinking that it gets buried, right? He's not thinking that it's whale buried and then this whole thing moves up. No.
Yeah, I think you're
Right.
right.
Right? Yeah. I'm getting upsettingly good at deciphering what he
That's
thinks.
so dumb. And in case anyone doesn't know the reference, the traditional Zoroastrian funeral involves putting the body of the deceased up on a tall tower so that they can be scavenged by usually vultures or something. The idea being that putting dead bodies are considered extremely ritually unclean. Putting in the ground would defile the ground. And fire has a lot of religious significance to Zoroastrians, so polluting a fire with a dead body would also be seen as blasphemous. So the final option is you let the animals have them.
Sky burial. That happens a
Exactly.
lot in like the Himalayan mountains because there's no ground, there's no space to bury folks.
Yeah.
So sky burial. I'm super pro sky burial. I kind of wish it was legal in the U.S.
I guess just, well, that transporting bodies across international boundaries is also tricky. There's a lot of laws around human corpses.
There are. I am weirdly have been into like the green burial world, and I've been down a YouTube rabbit hole.
Composting is legal in the U.S.
Human composting. It's legal specifically in Colorado, Washington, and Oregon.
Also, by the way, you don't need to get a concrete sealed, embalmed, airtight coffin thing. You can bury your family in a pine box under the ground with dirt on top, and they'll compost naturally.
Yeah.
So, here we go.
It proves that there's a whole whale found in the middle of mountains in Michigan, where I'm from.
I'm going to look up Michigan whale fossil, and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a Michigan whale fossil. Also, I don't remember there being a whole lot of mountains in Michigan.
Right, I'm trying to think of what mountain range we're talking about.
Oh, that's another thing I'll Google. I'll Google Michigan mountain.
Michigan mountains, also Michigan whales.
Okay, so there are a few quote-unquote mountains, although if you've seen real mountains...
It's not, okay.
It's like, dude, is that a mountain, or is that just a hill that you're calling a mountain because you haven't
with
seen...
aspirations.
Yeah, right, you haven't seen real mountains. Because, look, go to the Rockies, and then come back, and then if it doesn't reasonably compare to the Rockies, it's not really a mountain. It's one of the reasons why I think like the Appalachians are only iffy on the mountain status.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. So we do have whale fossils in Michigan.
Okay.
But let's see. So they were in the Brandon Township. Let's see where that is in Michigan. So I'm looking up where that is, and what do you know? It's right near Lake Erie. It's definitely not a mountain.
Okay.
Okay, so so this is at best Matt conflating whales that have been found on mountains in places like South America or Africa,
Right.
and
With this specific whale.
specific whale that was found not on a mountain in Michigan. Which, granted, I'm actually not that surprised that there are whale fossils in Michigan because, spoiler alerts, during Cenozoic sea transgressions, large portions of Michigan were underwater. I know. Here we go.
Crazy.
I'm going to take a drink for all that craziness because I don't know what specifically, but also I have delicious beer here.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a global flood. There's no denying it, folks. They can.
Yep.
Also, I just want to point out that this is on top of what creationists like to think of as the Dinosaur Peninsula, which is just their term for the Western Interior Seaway because we find dinosaurs that have been washed into the sea there. And I just want to bring up how crazy the Dinosaur Peninsula in North America thing is.
That's a little insane.
Sometime I want to find like a good source about the Dinosaur Peninsula and do a video about it because it's
That sounds
so
amazing.
ridiculous. It's so great.
Yeah.
Sit there and come up with every excuse as to
Okay.
why they think that, the flood never happened.
Okay, here are my two favorite excuses: Aeolian sediments and evaporites. I have yet to hear a good explanation for those two things. For those of you who
Yeah.
don't know, because again, this is weird nerd stuff, Aeolian sediments are sediments that were deposited by wind. Evaporites are deposits that are the result of water evaporating. And we find both of these kinds of things throughout all levels of the geological strata. So I want creationists to tell me how wind-borne sediments are deposited in a flood, and how large bodies of water can evaporate underneath a flood.
Yeah, that's a
It's
great
really-
question.
It's really interesting. Also, subaerial tuff and tuffaceous earth is a thing, which is volcanic deposits that come down and they're characteristically under air, subaerial. Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
So, well, it's not my favorite because I only really started looking into it like 4 months ago. I would also like an explanation for subaerial tuff all throughout the Mesozoic because it's all over the place, especially in the Jurassic. How did that get there when the Jurassic is supposed to be forming underneath a flood?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it really is. So those are my quote-unquote excuses, which I like to term things that make the flood as described by creationists physically precluded from ever having happened.
Yeah.
But let's look at what evolutionists say about, and now this is going to sound very hokey, okay? Some of the things I'm about to share with you.
Warn us.
Now, I do not believe these things. But this is what evolution...
Okay, I laugh because obviously he doesn't, but when I was a kid growing up in a creationist church, we once had a mock creation evolution debate, but we didn't have anyone to do the evolution side. So I was picked because I was like the brainy kid who did a lot of science stuff, so they figured I might be a reasonable stand-in. And they had to stop the debate because people were yelling at me.
Oh no, because you were like, right?
No, just because I was trying to give a side in a debate that I didn't even believe, but it was the side they weren't on.
That makes me feel really bad for like child Dapper.
Yeah, so I actually get why he's being so careful to point out that he doesn't believe this, because I didn't do that, and people started yelling at me. So that was actually one of the things that first made me question young Earth creationism in the first place, because I was like, wait, this isn't what normal, rational people do when presented with someone who just disagrees, and especially not with someone who doesn't disagree, but is just doing the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
So that was where I started my well, let's look into this. So, good job, my evangelical church, for hosting that mock debate.
Good job.
Evolutionary theory actually teaches, okay?
Okay. Whenever he says that, you're about to hear something that no one actually thinks.
Yeah.
It's squids and octopuses, they say, well, we all evolved from different animals.
Okay, here we go.
And Pastor Tom
He's going to go squids and octopuses. Cephalopods are from space. That's where he's going.
Cephalopods
Thompson will definitely talk about how we all came from a common ancestor, not a primate, but a human being.
Which is a primate. Okay, I'll just take a quick drink. Creationists tend to acknowledge that humans are mammals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they tend not to think that primates as a whole are a single created kind.
Right.
Which means that for the same reasons that creationists can be comfortable concluding that humans are mammals, they could be comfortable with concluding that humans are primates, which they obviously are, but they just don't, because it makes them feel uncomfortable for some reason. And
it
it's
feels
weird
too close
and
to the
dumb.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird and dumb, but they could just do it. Anyway, That story was very Stanford Prison Experiment, says Silver Harlow. Yeah, actually, unfortunately, it was. Now, look, it wasn't as bad as the Stanford Prison Experiment by a long shot. Like, I don't have any lasting scars from that, whereas apparently some of the prisoners in the Stanford Prison Experiment do. I'm not going to get into that experiment right now, guys. If you haven't heard of it, look it up, because it's dark and interesting.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Okay. And, even just the thought of evolution sounds silly to me. And it would be a joke
I know,
if people weren't so seriously into believing it. I was talking to a guy one time. He's like, "What, you gonna tell me you don't think we're related?"
Stay on topic. Again, he has notes.
You know what? I'm adding a thing for Matt, which is just complete left turn into irrelevancy when he had a point to make, and we're drinking for it right now. Look, guys, when I do debates, I usually don't have notes even for my opening statement.
Yeah.
I usually wing those, and I managed to stay on topic. This is crazy. And also, if you ever hear me debating Flat Earth, there's some alcohol involved, because I'm not going to debate Flat Earth sober.
I do not recommend debating Flat Earth sober. I did it that one time against Thompson, and that was miserable.
By the way, can I just say, you picked like one of the least pleasant Flat Earthers to debate there?
I didn't pick it.
Well, that's true. But you did agree to it.
I did agree.
There's a reason
I did agree to that.
There's a reason that like I tended was like, oh, Flat Earth Ozzy, like I don't like him, it turns out, because it turns out unbeknownst to me he was a raging misogynist, and I didn't know that.
Oh.
However, he's not a dick when he's talking to you in person or on like an audio thing.
Okay.
Whereas Nathan Thompson is.
Yeah, Nathan Thompson's just a dick.
Okay, here we go.
He's like, well, we have similar DNA. He has the grass has DNA, and we have DNA. Well, number one, then why are you walking on your ancestors?
No. Okay, let's take a drink for grass's human ancestor, and then we'll get into it. So.
Well, then why do we eat our ancestors, right? Like.
Which we don't.
What are we supposed to do? Starve?
There are cannibalism funerary rites for some cultures, but ignoring that.
Right.
Extant species. No extant species is the ancestor of humans.
Correct.
So the common ancestor between grass and humans wasn't grass, and it wasn't human.
Sure wasn't.
It was way down towards the base of eukaryota. Right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't even photosynthetic. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was. It had to have been something before plant and animal like split.
Right. It would be the common ancestor of plants and animals.
Animals, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't grass. Grass didn't evolve until like sometime in the Cretaceous. Now, it's been a little contentious because there have been some fossils that seem to be grass found in India from before we thought that grass evolved. And then our next earliest grass shows up in South America towards the end of the Cretaceous. So it's a little up in the air right now exactly when grass evolved, but it seems like the Cretaceous broadly is the answer at least. Exactly when, it's a little up in the air.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, whereas by the Cretaceous, mammals had already evolved. And like, I believe, and I'm not positive on this, but I believe that euarchontoglires, which includes rodents, lagomorphs, primates, and colugos, had already diverged from other Loracitherians, which also includes like dogs, horses, deer, all of which are in Ferae, which is one of the other big Loracitherian clades. Now, don't quote me, because, like, look, my mammal evolutionary history is not as good as my dinosaur evolutionary history, so I get that wrong far more often, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. So, anyway, here we go.
For crying out loud, get some respect for your ancestry.
I mean, sure, but grass isn't in it, so...
Right.
You know, and the rocks are your ancestors too. The rocks are the grass's ancestors. So wherever you walk, you might be walking on grandfather. Okay?
Also, look, people have died everywhere. You're probably going to walk over a place where somebody died and was buried, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Number one. And then number two, they say, well, dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago.
Yeah, 66.
And they say grass came into being 55 million years ago. So dinosaurs...
Look, like I said, it's a little contentious, but that's not completely wrong. So I'm going to take a drink for like that being like for a layman within like the reasonable realm of like, yeah, that's a pretty good broad idea of when those things happen. So here we go.
Never saw grass. Well, they just recently did a...
No, he just said dinosaurs never saw grass. No, he said 55.
Yeah.
No, that's completely wrong. That was drink for that being wrong.
Grass evolved 55 million years ago.
That's way wrong. It was in the Cretaceous.
Okay.
So
how long ago was that?
Well, the Cretaceous ended when the big Mesozoic dinosaur extinction.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
I'm sorry. For some reason, I had in my head that he had said 75 because that makes sense.
Okay. No. He's off.
No,
I'm
he's
drinking
off
again.
by like at least 10 million years. At least.
Yeah.
Actually, probably more like 20
At
million.
least 20 million.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So yeah, take a drink for that being completely crazy. And also maybe if you're watching at home, you can take a drink for me pretending that Matt was being more reasonable than he is because the thing he actually said just didn't compute into my brain because it was so stupid.
It was so bad you couldn't process it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun level of wrong.
Yeah.
A test this past year on dinosaur species that they discovered, and guess what the dinosaur ate? Rats.
Again, like I said, we've always, well, I can't say always because, paleontological investigation into places like the Indian subcontinent and South America is relatively recent compared to places like Europe, North Africa, and North America. And that's mostly because, well, Germans and the English were kind of the first people to do like rigorous paleontology. And then that spread to the Americas with the Americans. And so you sort of get like rigorous paleontology spreading from the places where the Germans, British, and Americans could get to easily. So, of course, North America, North Africa, and Europe are the places that have the longest history of actual scientific paleontology going on. And South America is relatively recent because, for one thing, you can't really do it if the political situation is too unstable, and it almost always is. So, at least in a lot of places. There are also places that are perfectly fine to do paleontology, but they also tend to be the less interesting places, both in sub-Saharan Africa and in South America. Unfortunately, it's weird how scientific interest and political instability seem to be oddly correlated. But it's actually not weird. It's actually like a sampling bias because the most interesting scientific stuff for paleontology has already been discovered in the politically stable places because, of course.
Right, because we already did that part. Yeah.
Right, we did that. So, yeah, this is... By the time Matt gave this speech, at the very least, the origin of grass was known to be sometime in the Cretaceous. And I think after he gave the speech, we pushed it back farther, but that might not be the case. So, yeah, when he gave the speech, that was not the scientific consensus. I'm actually not sure if it was ever the scientific consensus. The grass post-dated the KPG, but as long as I've remembered, grass has been known to have been a Cretaceous, like, novelty.
Gotcha. Also, I'd just like to point out, once again, I'm going to, seriously, Matt, I would love to send Mr. Powell here to a rhetoric class or just, like, speech or something, because this would be easier if he could stay on point. One, it'd be easier for us to review, but also it would have to be easier for him to give a presentation, right? Because if you're going to give a presentation, right, and you're going to talk about something that you have not gone to school for, that you are not a, like, that you're going to have to do some research on, right? Such as, when did grass show up, right? You can have time and space to figure out some of these facts, my guy. If you just pick one thing, right? Like, you could easily give a 30-minute presentation on
whales.
Like, on whales, just on whales, right? The history and the evolution of whales, where we find them. You could give an hour-long presentation on that, like, without blinking, right? And that would be really cool. I would love for you to do that.
No, do blink.
And just
it's bad for your eyes not to blink for that long.
That's true. Yeah, do blink. But like just pick one topic and just do that. Your sermon gives me whiplash, my guy.
Yeah.
Yet grass came into being 10 million years after?
Nope.
No.
Doesn't make any sense, folks.
That would make sense.
Again,
That's true.
Them coming up with these stupid objections to Jesus and to the Bible
No, none of this is an objection to Jesus.
Literally none of it.
Taking a drink.
Yeah, I'm taking another drink.
Look, there are objections you can make to Jesus. The KPG extinction just isn't one of them.
Right. If we want to have a conversation about the historicity of the Jesus of the Bible, right? Like, that would be an interesting conversation. Apologia has been doing a series on that. You know, he just had Bart Ehrman on an episode that was really interesting.
Oh, so did Religion for Breakfast, which is another fun channel.
Oh, I like Religion for Breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are so like that's a whole deeply you could literally spend your entire life on that field.
Oh, real quick. I'm being informed from chat that apparently the whale in Michigan was 220, not million, not thousand, just plain old years.
220 years old.
So apparently it was just a whale skeleton that someone hauled over to Michigan and then abandoned.
Cool. Listen, there was, technically whale hunting is illegal in Oklahoma. And like
Is it really?
It really is. And the tale that goes along with that little fun fact is that the Arkansas River does eventually connect to the ocean. So the urban legend is that the urban legend is that like a baby whale swam up the Arkansas River and somebody shot it.
Better make that illegal.
So they made that illegal.
I remember once reading, and I don't know how true this is, but I was talking to my then girlfriend who had a thing for like weird laws.
Okay.
And like she was like, "Hey, did you know that it's illegal to lead a giraffe down the street by a collar in Florida?" And I was like, "No. Why would that be illegal?" And she's like, "I guess it happened once, and they didn't want it to happen again." It's like, I guess.
I think, again, this is like my urban legend.
Now, it might not have been Florida, to be fair, because there were a few Floridas and a few other states, so they merged together in my memory.
But I think in Boston, it's still technically legal to bring your cow to the oh no.
Courthouse?
No, the big park. Commons, to the Boston Commons.
Okay, the Boston Commons? To graze it?
To graze, yeah. I think you can still technically graze your cow at the Commons.
The thing is, when you see the whatever Commons, originally that was a common grazing ground.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was usually the worst grazing ground around. For a reason. It's called the Tragedy of the Commons. And it's named. The Tragedy of the Commons is named after common grazing grounds.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get some more Matt in.
We found another topic more interesting than that.
It's not hard.
Not hard.
Gives themselves away. They set their sights against the Lord and against his anointed, and every time they fail.
I'm just going to drink for everyone who
because you know what? I'm not the only
God.
person speaking out on this stuff. We got a whole weekend of this stuff coming up here, folks. And I'm gonna make sure that the truth is plain.
Oh, good.
You know, and we're not gonna butter this thing over. All right, so they say, well, you're not, how can you think that you're not related to the grass? Well, number one, just because grass has DNA and we have DNA, that's like saying, well, aren't birds and airplanes related because they have wings?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to take a drink. And again, we're going to get into it after I open a new beer.
Once again, Sam Adams or just about any beer company. I'd be so happy to show off your beer.
I would also appreciate that. There we go.
I guess
free ASMR.
Technically, currently the beverages of this stream are sponsored by the D&D module that I'm going to try to publish by the end of the year.
That's true. Sam Adams, we're currently sponsoring you in an extremely minuscule way. Well, Maddie is. It's an extremely minuscule way.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not just the presence of DNA that makes people conclude that plants and animals share common ancestry.
Well, yeah, because also, like, we can play the Sesame Street game, right? The Sesame Street game is here's 4 objects, right? And then one of these things is not like the other, right? So how are 3 of them the same but different from the 4th? And sometimes you could play that game, right? Because Sesame Street does this, where like, well, these three things are green, and this one isn't green, so that's how that one's different. But also, these three are like squares, but this one's a circle, right? Like, so things can be alike in one way and different in others. Turns out,
No.
what? That's like Matt is like making Sesame Street level arguments, which is very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. So here's one of the things, right? So
Yeah.
the reason that science concludes that eukaryotes as a group share common ancestry is a number of things. One is they have some very highly conserved genes between them that aren't shared with other groups of organisms like archaea or bacteria. But also, one of the reasons that we conclude that archaea are actually closer to eukaryotes than other prokaryotes, the bacteria, is because they share more conserved genes with eukaryotes than they do with other bacteria, other prokaryotes. So there's this nested hierarchy. And so some of the very important but eukaryote-specific genes are shared between plants and animals. And the thing is, like a certain YouTube creationist likes to say, it's the genes that are passed down from generation to generation, or, you know, sperm and egg, except when we're talking about things that are asexually reproducing, it's not that. But yeah, this is the way you determine ancestry is DNA. And the fact that there are these highly conserved genes lends credence to the idea that these share some common ancestry. I'm sorry that fact upsets Matt, but it doesn't make it go away.
Right. Yeah, that's like, and like, could you listen? If we're on Sesame Street and we had an airplane, a bird, and a single-celled eukaryotic organism. Right.
I mean, the right answer would be the plane is the odd one out.
Well, like, no, but I'm saying that, like, you could make the argument, oh, hey, one of these things is not like the other because two of them can fly, but one of them can't.
Right.
Right? But then you can be BLS, but also, two of these things are not like the other because these are both things that are, like, biological and alive, and the other isn't. Right? Like, category matters. You know what I mean?
When we're talking about living things, you got to stick to living things.
Stick to living things. Yeah. So the ability to compare and contrast different things, like what I think Matt is trying to suggest is that the way that animals or that living things are categorized is completely arbitrary. Right. And I think that's what he's trying to get at. You know what I mean?
Let's see if he explains it.
Okay. I bet he doesn't.
We're close to getting through more than 10 minutes of this. If we can get 2 more minutes in this, we'll have surpassed our 10-minute record.
I'm so proud of us. Okay.
Isn't an octopus and an ink pen related because they both squirt ink?
Same stupid.
Look at the logic behind these people. It's crazy. It's literally madness.
Look, I would agree if the only point were that both of them have DNA, yeah, that would be a stupid reason. It's not the only point. So
it's not.
Moving on.
You know? So anyways, let's continue here. So now this is the hokey stuff, folks.
Oh, finally.
So since they think that we all came from an amoeba that found some...
Nope. Amoebozoa is sister to Obozoa, which includes, among other things, fungi and animals.
Ooh.
Yeah. So amoebas are not ancestral to animals. They are a sister group to the group that includes both animals and fungi. So take a drink for Matt being completely stupid on this one.
Mother amoeba to marry, of course, because you got to have two. Must have.
No, amoebas asexually reproduce. Gosh darn it, Matt. Stop making me pause and drink.
Yep.
Holy crap. It's like Matt just like ignores asexual reproduction. And to be fair, it's not as much fun. But like, come on, dude. Most organisms reproduce asexually.
Found something to eat. Slowly evolved into where we are today. Let's just grant all that.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Squids and octopuses have a different genetic build than any other creature in the world.
Nope, they're mollusks through and through, both in anatomy and in genetics. So take a drink.
Okay.
Because the thing is, we have built up genetic phylogenies for mollusca. And guess who nests well within mollusca? Yeah, the cephalopods.
Okay, I was about to ask. I'm going to ask a really dumb question. Sorry, because because it's the squishy science.
Yeah.
So, okay, because mollusks are usually like, when I think of a mollusk, I think of it. Sorry, is a clam a mollusk?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I tend to think of things in hard shells when I think of mollusks.
So here's the thing. Ancestrally, cephalopods had hard shells.
Oh.
And modern cephalopods still have shells, but they're internal and they usually don't fully mineralize.
Oh, that's really cool.
So if you own a parrot, one of the things you might buy for it is something called a cuttlebone.
Okay.
That's the hard shell of a cuttlefish.
Ooh.
But if you look at a cuttlefish, it doesn't have an external hard shell. That's because the hard shell is internal.
Internal? That's really cool, actually.
Also, if you've ever cleaned squid for making them into food, one of the things you had to pull out is this weird little, like, it feels like plastic and it's clear. It's actually mostly made of a thin sheet of cartilage. And that's the remains of the shell of the squid.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That's really cool. So squids and octopi are sort of like inside-out clams?
Kind of, yeah.
Obviously, to put that very, very at my elementary school brain.
But the interesting thing is, the first cephalopods we find in the fossil record, like orthocones and things like that, they do have external shells.
Ooh.
In fact, the big difference between a nautilus, which you might know is a shelled cephalopod, and an ammonite, is how their internal shell anatomy works.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and Vishanti points out that structure is called the shell. And yes, Smitty also points out nautiluses still have hard external shells. Yep. So yes, cephalopods are weird among the mollusks, but they're
just mollusks.
Absolutely mollusks. Yep.
Okay.
So scientists have come to the conclusion that they couldn't have come from any other sea creature.
Nope. Take
so
a drink.
Here's
They're
what
just mollusks.
evolutionary theory states about how they got here. Evolutionists claim, it says, one plausible explanation, in our view, is that the genes are likely new extraterrestrial imports to Earth.
Nope, take a drink.
These scientists declare
I also
that,
want to know
quote,
his source
the
here.
squid eggs hitched a ride to Earth on the back of asteroids.
Here's how you know what Matt is using for a source. It's almost always Fox News science reporting.
Oh, okay.
Which is why it's almost always terrible. Basically, there was a paper saying, hey, mollusks are so weird, they seem like a reasonable analogy for what intelligent life how intelligence could develop on other planets. Because one of the things about cephalopods is they're extremely intelligent. But they do it with anatomy that's almost entirely different from, like, say, humans or corvids or cetaceans or something like that, right? Which are the other intelligent animals we typically think of. So, basically, some real legitimate science is going on in the field of astrobiology to look at how do you get intelligence out of radically different anatomy from what we're used to in intelligent animals.
Okay.
News media picks this up as maybe squid are aliens. And Matt runs with it.
That's awful.
Yeah, it's really, really dumb.
Thanks, I hate it.
I know. Okay, here we go. We're like 40 seconds from breaking our record.
That is what evolution teaches, folks.
No, it isn't. Take a drink.
I am not kidding. I was in an interview with a friend of mine who's he's an actual creation scientist. Now, him and I don't see eye to eye on everything.
Contradiction in terms, but okay.
He brought this up, and I thought he was joking with me. I said, are you serious? We cut for a moment. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is what they teach?
No, it's not.
I said, yeah, it's what they teach. I looked it up. Sure enough, evolution teaches that they hitched a ride on the back of asteroids. Doesn't that sound fun?
I want to drink again, but it's the same point.
They don't get along anyways.
Just drink again, you'll feel better.
Are constantly fighting each other, so I don't know how they made it here to begin.
Squid and octopus are constantly fighting. I'm going to need a citation on that one.
Citation on that.
I'm going to take a drink, because here's the thing. Okay, so squid are mostly free-swimming things that live in the water column, right? They're pelagic. They live in the water. Octopus Which, by the way, there's a whole lot of accepted plurals for octopus, and I'm just going to use it as a non-declinable noun. Right?
Okay.
So it doesn't have a plural. I'm not going to worry about case. It's just octopus. Octopus are primarily benthic. They live on the ocean floor. They crawl around on the ocean floor, and they feed on things that live on the floor of the ocean. They don't actually tend to come into conflict because they don't compete for the same resources for the most part. Squid tend to eat fish that are, swimming in the water column. Octopus tend to eat things like crustaceans and bivalves that are stuck to the bottom. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like you might come
there's no reason that Godzilla and Kong need to fight. They live in different ecosystems.
I was going to go with a business example, right? So like,
oh, okay.
Let's say you own a flower shop and there's a flower shop across the street. You might have some beef, right?
Yeah.
But you probably don't have any beef with the print shop down the road. Because
definitely not.
The people who need flowers are going to come to either you or the across the street guys. But people who need printing weren't coming to you in the first place. So what do you care?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that with squid and octopus, where it's just like they don't share the same food. They just there's really no reason for a conflict there because they are niche partitioned. So niche partitioning is where you have different groups of animals that could come into conflict, but because they tend to use different resources in the same environment, they don't need to, so they tend not to. So for instance, in South America, there are 3 big apex predators, right? There's the black caiman, the jaguar, and surprisingly, the giant river otter.
Ooh.
Yeah. But they tend to live in different microclimates. So for the most part, they don't come into significant amounts of conflict. Which is good, because in any fight between any 2 of those, river otters being very social, so they have a bunch of them together.
Okay.
Like, in a fight, it's kind of a toss-up between any 2 of those.
How big is a giant river otter?
Oh, they're quite big. They're the size of large dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
there's often there's often like dozens of them.
Okay, because I've only seen like not giant river otters at like the zoo, and they're just very cute.
They are well. The giant river otters are also cute, but yeah, you can.
But
find,
they're giant.
You can actually find on YouTube videos of giant river otters defeating caimans.
What?
Yeah, but they tend not to come into conflict though, because they partition themselves into different microclimates. Yeah. Similarly, octopus and squid don't occupy the same part of the environment they live in. So, problem solved. Anyway, here we go.
But of course they were eggs, and the article goes on to say that they were...
Also going to point out, cephalopod eggs would not survive exposure to the vacuum of space.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
They require being submerged in ocean water.
Yeah.
No, they were fertilized. They don't know how, but they were fertilized so that they could hatch when they hit the water.
None of this is a thing that scientists are saying.
Evolutionists also claim that monkeys, because monkeys had to have somehow gotten to South America from Africa.
That's a problem for you too, Matt. Because you also think those monkeys got to South America. And by the way, only the New World monkeys with the nostrils that diverged at the end and that have the prehensile tails made it to South America. For some reason, the monkeys with the nostrils that face the same direction and without the prehensile tails never made it. Who knows why? You're not going to explain it. So whatever his explanation is here, I'm just going to point out that if he rejects it, it's also a problem for him because it removes one of the options for him to explain how the monkeys got there.
Yeah.
That's what evolutionary theory states, and they have a problem figuring out how. So their best conclusion that their best scientists have come up with is this idea that monkeys surfed across the ocean.
So, oh goodness. That's the Godzilla theme song. We don't get that much.
Whoa, I gotta open a new beer for that. Hold on. Okay. I'm done with Chug Norris, and I'm on to Bearded Theologian, not sponsored.
The Nielsen Rating Company is calling me. That's what that is. I filled out one of their surveys.
Are you in Nielsen House?
Apparently I am now.
Okay.
I filled out one of the surveys, and they sent me a $5 bill in the mail.
That's amazing.
I'm not kidding. They sent a $1 bill in the envelope that enclosed the survey, and then it didn't. As far as I could tell, it didn't say in the English side, but on the Spanish side, it promised me $5 if I sent off the survey.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I sent off the survey, and then a thank you note arrived with a $5 bill in it, which, by the way, is illegal. It's illegal to send cash in the mail.
That's amazing.
I just lost my entire train of thought. Where were we?
You know what? It doesn't matter. Just hit play.
Okay.
Matt's going to change
Across
topic.
the ocean to a land anew over in
right.
South.
Surfing monkeys. Okay, so once again, this is Matt taking hyped up pop sci news articles,
Right.
not bothering to check with what's actually happening. Because what's actually happening is there's this thing called like a hurricane. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Maddie. I assume you haven't. Like, it's not like you do weather stuff anyway.
Right. It's not like I do weather stuff. It's not
Right.
like, yeah.
So hurricanes have been known to do things like toss trees and other plant matter, as well as animals, into the ocean.
Yeah, that's a thing that happens.
Now, also, across the, the Atlantic Ocean, there's a tendency for things to kind of go from, like, Africa towards the Americas sometimes. That's a thing that happens.
That's a thing.
And sometimes when animals get washed out to sea, and there's a bit of plant debris floating, as plants tend to do, at least for a long time, but not always, they'll tend to swim towards it and hold on to the plant in an effort not to immediately drown and die of exhaustion.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you know, but in the past, South America and Africa were closer. And one of the reasons we know this is, one of the reasons we know this is because currently they're getting farther apart. So you wind that backwards, they got closer in the past.
They used to be, if they're further apart today than they were yesterday, go back a few more yesterdays.
Yeah, it just continues.
Yeah.
So the actual hypothesis is that way back when Africa and South America were significantly closer, some tropical storms managed to wash some monkeys out to sea. They clung to some bits of debris of floating plant matter, and they drifted to South America.
Yeah, and like there's been examples of some islands being populated with iguanas in this way, I think.
Yes, there was Angola was recently populated with the green iguana after a rafting event in the late 20th century. I think it was in like the 90s.
Gotcha. So like the point is that this isn't an insane idea. This is a process we have observed to happen, right? So maybe this observed process also happened in the past.
Right.
It's not out of the realm of possibility because we know that monkeys had to somehow get from Africa to South America, right?
Whether or not the flood is true, because remember, Matt needs to get them there too. He also needs to get rodents there, because that's another group that's presumed to have rafted across, actually earlier than the monkeys probably, because rodents didn't evolve in South America. They arrive in South America seeming to already have evolved in the old world.
Gotcha. So like again, some of the stuff that's kind of like I find funny is that like for Matt to be this incredulous about this story, he has to already accept that like monkeys didn't evolve in South America because that's
a big part of young Earth creationism.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I forget my point.
That's okay. We'll just hit
I'm
play.
gonna just drink my beer.
We're like 20 seconds away from beating our record, so.
South America.
Let's do it.
Now that has a lot of problems. There's tides out there. You know, they probably get blown off their surf. Who's ever seen a monkey surf? I don't even think they can.
No, I'm gonna say no one is actually literally saying there was surfboards involved, Matt. My goodness.
Also, though, I've seen a monkey ride a dog dressed as a cowboy. So, like, the monkey was dressed as a cowboy, not the dog. Both the monkey and the dog were very well trained. I'm just saying, you seem to underestimate monkeys there, Matt.
I've seen a squirrel surf on a surfboard.
Ooh, dogs surf.
Yeah. So
and dogs are way less, like...
dexterous?
Like, dexterous than a monkey, yeah.
Yeah. So, if they did have surfboards, I actually don't really doubt the ability of monkeys to learn to surf.
Yeah.
For instance, the typical surfing animals on surfboards are monkeys.
Sorry.
It's okay.
But
Ah.
this is what happens, folks, when you go into Fantasyland and when you think that the
No,
world created
what happens
itself.
when you go into Fantasyland is you're able to cast Fireball, but okay.
Not as a level 6 artificer, though.
Not as a level 6 artificer. That's true.
No third level spell slots as a level 6 artificer.
Oh no.
It's
Did
like
you at least
level-
get more second level spells?
No.
Did you get
No spell
No?
slots.
For those of you that are wondering, everybody leveled up at the end of our last game, at the end of our game last night, but they leveled up from level 5 to level 6. Apparently level 6 is very boring,
It's
for everyone.
for a lot of classes, yeah. It's one of the most boring levels. I've complained about level 6 for a lot of classes.
Alas, alack.
From nothing. Magically, I might add.
Magically. No.
Evolution won in court, not the lab. Let's always remember that. It never, and that's why they're teaching it in school.
No, it won in court because it won in the lab. That was the whole point.
That was the whole point. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to take a drink for that, and then we'll just hit play.
It's not because of the lab. It's because the U.S. government said, we have to teach evolution.
Why did it win in all the other countries, Matt? The U.S. isn't the only country. Damn it.
Because Matthew here thinks in black and white, right? It's only the US exists, or it's the US and everybody else, right? And then it's Christians or evil atheists. It's the only two choices.
Evolutionist evil atheists.
Evil
and creationist
atheists,
Christians,
yeah.
the only options. It actually
Options.
reminds me of a tweet I saw. Someone tweeted a little story about like a 19-year-old kid in their bar. And then someone's like, the drinking age in all 50 states is 21. So maybe you should stop serving 19-year-olds. And the person said, as it turns out, I'm one of the dozens of people around the world who lives in a country other than the U.S. Because people in the U.S. always assume that everyone lives in the U.S.
It's true.
Okay, here we go.
We have to teach it to our students. And it's the only theory protected by law, folks.
It's not.
No, if you tried to teach flat Earth instead of universal gravitation, you would also have objections from the courts. So I'm going to take a drink.
It's also like this. What he said something that's like what he said is the only theory protected by the court, as though like I can't think of any time when there's been a court decision regarding like what, say, I'm allowed to research.
Oh,
right?
No.
Right, like there's no, so...
He's strictly speaking about schools.
Right. Okay. I thought he was extrapolating from school to be like, therefore scientists...
Well, okay, I'm giving him some benefit of the doubt there, but I'm pretty sure that he's talking about schools because, let's face it, creationists don't really care what happens at universities because they have their own.
Yeah.
They care what happens to little kids.
Yeah.
So.
And, there's not a law that says you have to teach evolution, right, in, say, a private school, right? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
In a private school, you're free to just skip that.
There are private schools that teach creationism.
And there are private schools that teach creationism. Granted, those aren't accredited, but that's not a governmental process of accreditation. Oh, okay.
So that's going to depend on your jurisdiction.
Okay.
But we have 30 seconds. I'm going to hit play.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's hit play.
Now, a lot of evolutionists will say, well, believing in God takes away from your ability to be a real human being and to think for yourself.
I mean,
you're thinking of anti-theist?
Yeah, not. I mean, I have heard some people say that, so it's not like it doesn't happen. But like, anti-theists and atheists aren't the same. Like, it's not a 100% overlap there.
And that's not what he said. He said evolutionists say this.
Oh yeah, and that's not even overlap with atheists.
That's not the same thing at all.
I'll take a drink for that being that confused about who's who.
It's people, they say. Who's ever heard that? I'm sure you guys have all heard that.
Yeah, I've heard it, but
they'll
not
say it
from
degrades your character. Live your own life. Be your own god.
No.
But let me ask you
Zero.
something. What gives us more? I'm just going to ask questions here tonight. Questions will get people to think. What degrades a person? If we came from billions of years of plasma in the galaxy that just exploded and somehow created us,
it was plasma at some point,
or
I
if
guess.
a god
So, okay.
loved us and designed us for his glory and his pleasure.
Neither of those, I would say, would degrade you per se.
Yeah. No.
So there you go.
God loved us. The Bible says, "For God."
I thought he was
so
saying that God
loved
degrades you.
the world.
God degrades
He
us.
gave his
That
only
is
begotten Son, that
technically,
whosoever
again,
believeth in him should
Matthew,
not perish, but
this
have
is why you
everlasting
need a
life.
class in rhetoric.
It's not pausing.
Believe it. And you know what?
It wants us to finish.
Recently, I was online listening to Pastor Thompson talk about these people that
I have to use a space bar now. My mouse won't work anymore. I don't
Oh,
know what's
no.
happening, everybody. But by the way,
But like grammatically, that is what Matt just said.
Yeah, it
that
is.
God is the more degrading.
That's
So,
true.
my guy, this is why this is again. It's a real offer. We will send you to take a class in like communication and rhetoric.
I mean,
and
that's
all
just
that.
basic grammar at that point. Like, diagram the sentence, Matt.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where we should start. Let's like get him remedial English. Which, look, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Lots of people take remedial English. It's not something to
There's
be
nothing
ashamed
wrong
of.
with that. Yeah.
I've helped people with remedial English. So, like, it's cool.
Like, especially if you're an adult and you're like, this was a gap in my education and I need to take the steps to fix that. I have infinite respect for that
Oh, yeah.
person, right? Because you're like, okay, listen, when I was a child, I wasn't responsible for my own education because I was a literal child. But now I'm an adult and there's things that failed me and I am going to bother to take the steps to learn. Like, so much fucking respect for that
Respect,
human. I'm
absolutely.
sorry, I didn't mean to curse. I know. Yeah.
Well, we get one free one.
Okay.
make repentance unclear. Guys, we gotta stop that. There's new people that are coming into this movement, if that's what you want to call it, and coming into Christianity, and they're hearing "repent of your sins." Well, what does that even mean?
I think it means resolve to try your best not to repeat those things that you did that were immoral.
Yeah. I like that. Repent, and I think to me, repentance also has it has one aspect of like true contrition. Like, I'm legitimately sorry for what I did. So part of that is like, I fully understand the consequences of my actions now, even if I didn't then.
Yeah.
You know, like there's like true contrition, and then like, oh shit, sorry. Oh my goodness, I am going to. Like,
We get
there's
a
some like
few shits.
amends making. I try to not curse on my channel, but I usually am not 3
Drinking?
beers
Yeah,
in.
exactly. Look, I'm on my 4th, so it's okay.
Okay.
Look, but here's the thing that we do have to wrap it up. So, Maddie,
Yeah,
what's coming on your channel?
Okay, so tomorrow night we're gonna do a live stream. I haven't completely decided what it's gonna be, but I think it's gonna be like a Reddit deep dive.
I may join you for that.
That would be great. That'll be at 7 Central. Thursday will be a new Scientist You Should Have Heard Of short. So I'm starting to release
Awesome.
shorts every Thursday. This one's going to be on astronomy nuns.
Ooh, astronomy nuns. Now that's pretty cool.
Astronomy nuns.
That reminds me,
So
by the
that
way,
little...
The
what's up?
the observatory around here, a significant number of the telescopes are operated by the Vatican.
That's awesome. Yeah, so, yeah. And then a new Weather 101 video will be coming out soon. I've been struggling with the script.
Well, you did enthalpy, so what's left?
So now we're actually going to move into first law of thermodynamics stuff. So,
Ooh, nice.
yeah, so I'm trying, that's going to be several videos
You're
because I
going to
think we
skip
need
the
to do.
zeroth law?
Sure am.
Okay. The zeroth law is kind of lame anyway.
What is the zeroth law?
Basically, if system A is in thermodynamic equilibrium with system B, and system B is in thermodynamic equilibrium with system C, then A is in thermodynamic equilibrium with C.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a little boring. We don't
basically-
actually...
It's required to make thermometers work, and that's why it's a law.
Okay, yeah, that's just like... yeah, that's...
Look, there's a reason it's 0. It's because it's so
Yeah.
basic that we didn't really think of it for a while.
So what I'm struggling with is to break down into about 5-minute chunks. What is the law? What does that mean physically? And then also let's do some of the problems. Let's do some math, right? And get our hands on it. So I don't know how many videos that's going to be, but we're going to spend some time with the first law. So that's what I've got going on my channel. It's going to be great.
Awesome.
Yeah. So good.
Right. Well, so Wednesday, there's a fair chance I'll be on. It's tomorrow. There's a fair chance I'll be on Maddie's channel. I am one of her more frequent Wednesday guests, so you know. Thursday is going to be the next speculative evolution video. It's update like 7 or something. We're already past the submissions for phase 2 with phase 3. So Saturday, I'm going to be doing a Leaving Young Earth creationism.
Nice.
Tuesday is going to be Kent with Bent. Then that this Friday, I may be discussing science with a younger creationist on Steve McRae's channel. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I saw that developing on Twitter.
Yeah, so maybe. If I am, I'll tweet it. If I'm not, I won't. So then, yeah, next Tuesday is Kent with Bent. Then that Thursday is going to be the first episode of Helping Cindy Lincoln, which, by the way, she has requested that I send her. And then I offered to send her all of the episodes that I have done but that haven't come out yet, which is now like 3 more of them. Because while we were live, I finished rendering episode 4.
Nice. I am so excited. I haven't watched your Cindy Lincoln interview video yet. I know we talked. It's a heavier one.
Yeah, it's not a light watch.
It's not a light watch, so I haven't had the space for that. But I'm very glad that you did that. It seems like a really important video.
Yeah. I'm also happy to say it is now my most watched live stream, and part of that is because, hey, yeah, like having a new #1 video, but also I like new people hearing about the awfulness that's going on at Dinosaur Adventureland. That's the biggest thing. I'm not going to say it doesn't factor in that it's my video, and that I like that, because it does. No dishonesty here.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
So with that, though, I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone who's here, and we're going to end with a thank you to my patrons and channel members, because you pretty literally keep the lights on here. I just want to take a second to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 and above. Bob Knob, Bent Hovend, Ian Chen, Chris Love, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, and Res Instance. My channel members and patrons help make this channel possible, and without their support, this channel really wouldn't exist. If you would like to help support the channel as a member or patron, there are links in the description to both join the channel as well as join the Patreon. Patrons and members get mentioned in these credit scenes, as well as getting early access to my scripted videos, and if you pledge $10 or above, you can also get access to various 3D assets that I create for Blender, both for use in the channel, as well as just general giveaways to my supporters to help in any Blender projects they might have. If a monthly or annual pledge isn't for you, then there is also a merch store linked to the description. And if none of that's right for you, please just like and subscribe, because every like and subscription really helps the video out. Thank you.